What if I told you the crushing exhaustion you feel isn't a symptom of depression, but of a psychic invasion? That Carl Jung, in his final years, warned of an invisible war being waged on emotionally gifted people, and you are on the front lines. He documented a terrifying dynamic where people he called shadow dwellers were quite literally feeding on the life force of empaths. These aren't your typical villains. They are masters of the sympathetic disguise, often appearing as broken, charming souls crying out for your unique brand of healing. But Jung's chilling insight was this: they've unconsciously perfected a survival strategy of siphoning spiritual energy from others. The horror is that the entire process is hidden in plain sight, masked as intense connection, camouflaged as soulmate level love, but in reality, it's your own compassion being turned into a weapon against you. Jung saw it clearly. Empaths weren't just stumbling into toxic relationships. They were being targeted, hunted by individuals whose own inner light had gone out, leaving them desperate to consume the glow of others. I want you to join me as we map out this shadow territory of the human psyche. We will unmask these hidden predators, decode their methods before they can drain you, and then we'll activate Jung's forbidden protocol for turning the hunted into the sovereign, all without sacrificing the very gift that makes you so powerful. Because this is the truth modern therapy often ignores, a truth Jung saw decades ago. Empaths are not inherently flawed. They were conditioned in the chaos of their childhood to become the perfect energy source for emotional predators. Jung famously said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Yet his private work revealed a scarier equation. When an empath meets an energy predator, the transformation is a one-way street, and the empath is the one left altered and diminished. Look at it through a lens of pure survival. An empath's heightened sensitivity was their childhood armor. Being able to read the subtle shifts in a room, predict a parent's mood swing, or absorb unspoken tension was how you navigated a volatile environment and stayed safe. The devastating paradox is that the very superpower that protected you then now paints a giant target on your back for adult predators who have learned to hijack that gift. Dr. Judith Orloff's work on mirror neurons validates Jung's observations. Your brain quite literally experiences others' emotions as your own. But what Jung pinpointed, and many experts still miss, is that certain individuals have learned to manipulate this neurological wiring. It's not accidental, it's a strategic activation of your empathy. They are unconscious grandmasters of engineering emotional scenarios that feel like profound connection, but are actually exercises in energy theft, creating trauma bonds that feel like true love. But that's not even the worst of it. If you have ever walked away from someone feeling like your battery was ripped out, but you couldn't logically explain why, I want you to write this in the comments. My light is not their fuel. The true devastation is what Jung termed the shadow self-transfer. The energy predator doesn't just steal your light. They brainwash you into believing that being a living sacrifice is your highest calling. Jung saw this pattern again and again. He wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But with empaths and predators, it's inverted. The predator projects their internal void onto you, making you believe that constant exhaustion is just the price of deep love, that your burnout is a badge of honor. Think about the last time an interaction left you feeling hollowed out. Your body screamed the truth, a sudden wave of fatigue, a spike of anxiety, a fog descending on your brain. But you likely dismissed it, telling yourself, "I'm just being too sensitive." That is precisely the lie the energy predator needs you to internalize. It's what I call the unconscious gaslight. When their shadow convinces your conscious mind that your own brilliant intuition is the enemy. Here's the playbook for how this feeding actually happens, and this is where Jung's insights become brutally precise. Stage 1. Targeting. The energy predators have a sonar for empathy. They are drawn to your inner light like a shark to blood in the water. They can feel your emotional generosity from across a crowded room. Jung observed that personalities with narcissistic traits possess a chillingly accurate ability to spot an empath instantly. They see the glow of someone who will listen more than they talk, feel for them, and carry their emotional burdens. Stage 2. The bait. The predator never opens with aggression. They open with a story of their pain. They expose their wounds, their past traumas, their profound struggles. They cleverly mimic your own emotional depth, all while concealing their own hollowness. Jung believed the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Energy predators have learned instead to become who you desperately need them to be. Stage 3. The hook. Once your compassion is engaged, the systematic draining begins. They orchestrate a never-ending series of crises that demand your emotional intervention. They trauma dump on you for hours, then never ask how you're doing. They elevate you, making you feel like the only person on earth who truly gets them. Jung saw that empaths are conditioned to confuse being desperately needed with being deeply loved. Stage 4. The normalization. This is the most dangerous stage of all. The predator makes your depletion the very proof of your special connection. Your exhaustion becomes evidence of your love. Your mental fog is rebranded as the natural state of a highly sensitive person, not the result of being psychologically leached. But this is where Jung's genius became truly transformative. He didn't see this as a simple bad relationship. He identified it as an ancient, archetypal battle, what I call the savior complex meets the emotional black hole. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For an empath, that means accepting that your greatest gift can be twisted into a weapon, that your light can and will be consumed if you don't build a fortress around it." In Jungian thought, every archetype casts a shadow. For the empath, the shadow isn't meanness, it's the hidden addiction to being the rescuer. It's the desperate need to fix people because feeling useful feels safer than feeling truly seen for who you are. It's a fear of being abandoned that is so profound, you will accept psychic vampirism just to avoid being left alone. These energy predators are not mustache-twirling villains plotting your demise. They are unconscious souls driven by what Jung identified as the shadow's desperate hunger for wholeness. They recognize in you the very qualities they have disowned in themselves: true emotional capacity, authentic connection, and a deep inner life. But instead of undertaking the hard inner work to cultivate these traits, they found a shortcut to siphon it from you. They feed on your emotional life force because they've severed the connection to their own. They stand in your glow because they've let their own flame die out. This is what creates the psychological vampire loop. The more energy you pour into them, the emptier they become. The harder you try to heal them, the more broken they seem. The more of your light you share, the larger their shadow grows. This isn't because they are innately evil. It is because they are psychologically fractured. They've outsourced their capacity for feeling, so they must find external sources to consume, like someone with no ability to digest food who must eat constantly, but is never ever full. So you are now at a crossroads, facing what I call the empath's great deception. You can feel their bottomless pain, their internal desert, and their desperate craving for the light that you possess. Your entire being is wired to help, to soothe, to pull them from the dark. But here is the world-changing discovery from Jung. You can never heal another person by letting them devour your spirit. You cannot love someone into wholeness by letting them extinguish your light. You cannot rescue someone who, at an unconscious level, is committed to remaining a victim. Let me paint a picture of this pattern in the real world. The romantic vampire Sarah meets David. He's soulful, artistic, and carries a beautiful sadness that calls directly to her desire to heal. He pours out his stories of childhood pain, his fight with depression. Sarah feels like she's been chosen, the one person with the key to unlock his potential. But within a few months, Sarah is chronically tired. David treats her like a 24/7 crisis hotline, dumping his emotional baggage for hours without ever asking about her day. If she dares to share a problem, He expertly redirects the conversation back to his own suffering. Applying Jung's framework, Sarah had a horrifying realization. David wasn't looking for a partner, he was looking for an emotional host. Her empathy was his fix, her energy his life support. The moment she started setting boundaries, David's true colors emerged. He called her selfish, cold, a fraud. The truth: Sarah had cut off his supply, and his unconscious programming was now frantically scanning for a new energy source. The family parasite. Michael's mother was a queen of emotional drama. She'd phone him with an endless parade of manufactured crises, making him the sole manager of her emotional state. A missed call was twisted into an act of cruel abandonment. Any attempt to create space was met with threats of self-harm. Jung would instantly recognize this as the devouring mother archetype, the parent who unconsciously consumes their child's life force instead of nurturing their independence. Michael's empathy was turned against him from birth. Once Michael understood this dynamic, he saw his perpetual exhaustion wasn't a personal failure. It was the result of being systematically drained by someone incapable of managing their own inner world. Establishing boundaries with his mother felt like an act of betrayal, but it was in fact an act of survival. The workplace vampire. Lisa's co-worker was a perpetual victim. They would derail team meetings with personal issues, corner Lisa for unpaid therapy sessions, and turn their emotional instability into a company-wide emergency. What was truly insidious was how this colleague marketed their behavior as emotional depth and sensitivity. In a supposedly heartless corporate world, Lisa's empathy made her feel responsible for providing constant support. Jung would label this as a classic projection. The coworker made their own emotional chaos everyone else's problem, while casting themselves as a sensitive soul in a cruel world. But here's where Jung's warning becomes a matter of life and death. The longer you permit these parasites to feed on you, the more your own identity starts to merge with their shadow. You begin to actually believe their narrative, that your purpose on this earth is to be an emotional servant to others. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. For empaths, the dark truth is this: your relentless drive to heal others is often a frantic escape from your own unhealed wounds. The shadow of empathy is the secret, unconscious belief that your existence only has value if you are useful, that you must earn love through endless service, that your worth is measured by your capacity to absorb the pain of others. This belief system transforms you into the perfect host. You offer up your life force and call it love. You drain your own spirit and call it compassion. You destroy your own well-being and call it spiritual service. But Jung's most profound discovery is the one that will shatter and then rebuild your sense of self. Your light was never meant to be fuel for others. It was meant to be the lantern that guides your own journey home to yourself. By constantly giving your energy away, you aren't being holy. You are expertly avoiding the terrifying work of truly loving yourself. By focusing on saving others, you are running from the sacred duty of healing your own heart. The energy parasite, in this twisted way, becomes your partner in spiritual avoidance. They give you a perpetual crisis to solve so you never have to face your own. They offer you endless drama so you don't have to confront your own shadows. They hand you the crown of a martyr so you never have to claim the throne of a sovereign. Here is Jung's framework for shielding your light without closing your heart. I call it the Shieldi method. S is for sense. Sense the energy signature. Jung spoke of what he termed feeling, toned complexes. Every person radiates an energetic frequency that your empathic gift can read. You just have to listen. Parasites feel distinctly different in your system. Around them, you feel a drain, a subtle anxiety, confusion, or a feeling of being emotionally hijacked. Around healthy, life-giving people, you feel expanded, clear, calm, or energized. Start keeping a log. Note how you feel physically and emotionally before, during, and after you interact with people. Your body is a finely tuned truth barometer that will never lie to you. I is for integrate. Integrate your own shadow. For empaths, This means courageously owning the parts of you that are addicted to being needed, that are terrified of abandonment, that were taught love is a transaction based on service. Ask the hard questions. What emotional payoff do I get from being the rescuer? How does focusing on their brokenness allow me to ignore my own? Which childhood wound is this relationship a reenactment of? The point isn't to erase these parts of you, but to bring them into the light of consciousness so they stop making your life choices for you. H is for hold. Hold your sacred ground. Jung wrote, "Your vision becomes clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Protecting your energy is not an act of selfishness, it's an act of spiritual integrity. This means saying no to being an emotional dumping ground. It means declining the job of managing other people's unresolved trauma. It means choosing relationships that are reciprocal, not parasitic. Your energy is your most precious, finite resource. Every ounce you give to someone else's shadow is an ounce you can't invest in the growth of your own light. E is for embody. Embody your true nature. Parasites are drawn to empaths who are taught to play small, to dim their own light to make others feel more comfortable. The more you apologize for your sensitivity, deny your intuition, or suppress your gifts, the bigger a target you become. Jung's ultimate goal was individuation, the process of becoming authentically yourself, not the character others have cast for you. For empaths, this is about owning your sensitivity as your superpower, trusting your gut as your gospel, and using your gifts with conscious intent. L is for leverage. Leverage trauma into wisdom. Jung famously said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." This includes accepting the truth you have been a target for energy predators, not because you are weak, but because you carry a light so bright that unconscious people crave it. Your empathy was first born as a survival tool. Now, you must upgrade it into a tool of conscious discernment. You can feel what others feel without taking it on. You can offer deep compassion without offering yourself up as a sacrifice. You can support others without draining your own well. When you apply these Jungian principles, your world will fracture and then reform. You'll stop being a magnet for predators and start attracting conscious souls who can meet you in your depth without needing to drain you. But Jung warned during this critical transition, the parasites in your life will escalate their tactics when they feel their supply line being threatened. They will manufacture bigger emergencies. They will escalate to threats of self-harm. They will attack you, calling you cold, selfish, not the good person they thought you were. They will try to guilt you back into the old dynamic, weaponizing their pain against you. I call this the desperation play of the shadow. When the parasites can no longer feed easily, their behavior becomes more erratic, more manipulative. This is your sign that the boundaries are working. It will feel like proof that you are being cruel, but it is actually evidence of your own liberation. Be unshakable in this phase. Their reaction is about their addiction, not your worth. You are not responsible for their emotional fallout when they can no longer use you as their dumping ground. The healthy people in your orbit will respect your new boundaries. They might even be inspired by them. They will support your growth and will gladly reciprocate the energy you share. But the non-negotiable part is this: you must become the person you wish to attract. If you crave conscious partners, you must become conscious. If you want relationships of equal exchange, you must learn to receive as beautifully as you give. If you want authentic connection, you must be authentic, not a performance of what you think others want. Jung knew that this fight for your own light was a spiritual war. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Energy parasites have a profound, vested interest in keeping you depleted, small, and unaware of your real power. When you start protecting yourself, you are not just shifting relationship patterns. You are, in a very real sense, fighting for your soul. This is not a metaphor. Your very life force is what's on the line. Energy parasites will deploy their entire arsenal to regain access. Guilt, After all I've done for you, you're just going to leave me. Shame. I thought you were a more compassionate person than that. Fear. If you're this selfish, you're going to die alone. False urgency. I've never needed you more than right now. Identity assault. This isn't the real you. But Jung gave us the ultimate defense awareness. The moment you see the game for what it is, the manipulation becomes powerless. The truth is, every time you say no to being drained, you say yes to your own becoming. Every boundary is an affirmation of your own worth. Every time you refuse to dim your light for another's comfort, you are choosing your own soul over their shadow. This doesn't mean you become walled off or heartless. It means you become precise. You learn the crucial difference between genuine compassion and toxic codependence. You discover how to offer help from a place of fullness, not from a place of self-sacrifice. But here's the Jungian insight that reorients everything. When an empath fully awakens, they become a threat to all systems built on unconscious feeding. An empath who can no longer be guilt, tripped, drained, or controlled is a destabilizing force in any relationship built on an uneven power dynamic. You become a living mirror, reflecting back to others their own unconscious patterns. You become a firm boundary that compels others to finally take responsibility for their own emotional state. The awakened empath doesn't just shield their own light. They become a lighthouse that illuminates the path for others to find their own. You transform from being a resource to be plundered into a catalyst for collective growth. But this requires something that sends chills down the spine of most empaths. You must find the courage to be disliked by unconscious people. You must be willing to let go of relationships that were predicated on your self-abandonment. You must be willing to stand in your own sovereign space rather than sacrifice your soul for a fleeting sense of connection. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." As an awakened empath, you can only sustain connections with those who are equally committed to their own inner work. All others will naturally fall away. This is not a failure. This is filtration. This is not a loss. This is your liberation. This is not loneliness. This is your sovereignty. Comment below with, "My energy is sacred," if you've ever been called selfish for simply trying to protect your own peace. You will soon learn that one truly authentic connection is worth more than a dozen draining attachments. You will discover that the quality of your relationships matters infinitely more than the quantity. You'll understand, in your bones, that your light is far too precious to be consumed by those who refuse to light their own candle. There are 3 stages of empathic development that Jung outlined, and knowing where you are on this map is key to reaching energetic freedom. Level 1. The unconscious empath, or the sponge. You feel everything indiscriminately but understand none of it. You soak up others' emotions as if they were your own. You're in a perpetual state of being drained, and you blame yourself for being too much. You are a magnet for energy parasites because your gift has no shield. At this stage, your empathy is in control of you. You're like a high-powered antenna picking up every signal from miles around, resulting in constant static. The only way out is to build emotional boundaries and learn to ask, is this feeling mine or is it theirs? Level 2. The conscious empath, or the filter. You've become aware of your empathic nature and you're starting to use it with intention. You can feel what others are feeling, but you no longer automatically absorb it. You're practicing basic energy protection and can hold your own with energy parasites, though it's still difficult. At this stage, you're learning the crucial distinction between empathy and codependency. You can offer care without self-destructing, but guilt is still a major trigger that can pull you back into old patterns. Level 3. The sovereign empath, or the source. You have integrated your own shadow, and you wield your empathic gifts as a form of spiritual intelligence, not an emotional liability. You can feel with immense depth without losing your center. You now attract conscious individuals who not only respect your energy, but also reciprocate it. At this level, Your empathy becomes a precision tool for discernment, not a vulnerability for manipulation. You can instantly distinguish between someone's authentic emotions and their performative victimhood. You can offer a healing presence without taking on their sickness as your own. The path from level 1 to 3 demands what I call the courage to disappoint. You must be willing to disappoint the energy parasites who expect 24/7 access to your life force. You must be willing to disappoint family members who have gotten comfortable with you being their unpaid emotional janitor. You must be willing to disappoint a world that tells empaths their only value lies in their selfless service to others. But I must deliver Jung's final, urgent warning about this journey. Once you truly start protecting your light, there's no going back. Once you see the feeding dynamic, it cannot be unseen. Once you experience what energetic freedom feels like, you will never again tolerate emotional slavery. This knowledge will cost you things. It will cost you relationships. It will challenge your very sense of identity. It will force you to face the parts of yourself that would rather be needed than respected, useful than free, depleted than alone. Some of you hearing this will misuse it. You will use it to build impenetrable walls instead of healthy boundaries. You'll become bitter and cynical about connection instead of wise and discerning about energy. You will mistake being emotionally shut down with being spiritually evolved. That is the greatest trap of all. The goal is never to stop feeling. The goal is to feel consciously, to care with wisdom, and to love from a place of sovereign wholeness, not from a place of compulsive need. Jung's final warning was a call to arms. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming yourself means you must shed the version of you that exists only for the comfort and consumption of others. Your light is not a utility for others to plug into. It's the very essence of your soul. Your empathy is not a free service you provide to the world. It is a sacred gift to be shared with intention. The world has enough martyrs and depleted healers. What it desperately needs now are awakened empaths who know the profound difference between love and ownership, between compassion and self-erasure, between genuine service and self-sacrifice. If people began treating you like a stranger the moment you stopped being their emotional servant, comment, "They felt my sovereignty before I claimed it." Remember Jung's terrifying insight about empaths being fed upon. The energy predators weren't cartoon monsters. They were profoundly unconscious humans who had found a way to survive by consuming the light of others, instead of doing the hard work of kindling their own. Jung wrote in his final papers, "The greatest and most important problems of life are insoluble. They can only be outgrown. You will never solve the problem of the energy parasite by trying to fix them or save them. You can only solve it by outgrowing your own need to be their source." And here's the paradox Jung understood that changes the entire game. When you protect your light, you don't hoard it, you make it more potent. When you stop others from feeding on your energy, you suddenly have a surplus for your own growth, your own purpose, your own joy. The empath who learns to protect their gift doesn't become less compassionate. They become surgically precise with it. They learn to offer their light only to those who can receive it with respect, who can appreciate its warmth without trying to possess it, who can meet it with a light of their own. Jung's ultimate warning wasn't just about predators. It was a fierce invitation to claim your birthright as a conscious creator of your own reality, to choose how and when to use your gifts instead of being used by them. Your sensitivity is not a wound to be managed. It is a superpower awaiting its mission. Your empathy is not a flaw to be apologized for. It is a strength to be wielded with divine purpose. Your light is not fuel to keep someone else's darkness alive. It is the very illumination of your own sacred path. The energy predators Jung warned of can only survive by feeding on the unconscious. When you awaken, when you learn to protect your spirit while sharing your gifts, when you become the absolute sovereign of your own energetic field, you become invisible to them. That is the final shield. Not a wall that isolates you from the world, but a consciousness so bright that it only permits love to enter. Master that, and you will never again mistake being drained for being loved, being needed for being cherished, or self-abandonment for devotion. Jung's warning was clear: they are feeding on your light. But his promise was even clearer: you hold all the power to make them stop. If this message resonated with you, know you are not alone. A global awakening of empaths is happening right now. Share in the comments one boundary you are now ready to set to protect your sacred energy. Your courage might just be the permission another empath needs to finally start their own journey home.